I was so excited when they came up to sing, weren't you? Are y'all excited? He said we would be, and we were. I was excited. Huh? I did. You didn't even look at me. That's why. I was singing and smiling and lighting up my pew, having a good time. Yeah. I didn't hear your mother sing it, but I heard the cathedral sing it. Well, I knew the other one too, that y'all just sang. I heard that. I used to look, it was, records was before my time, but I used to listen, I liked listening to records. Still got some, right, Miss Bonnie? Still listening to some good records. This is, this concrete block, we could just, it's a lot lighter than the pulpit, right? I could just move it. It's kind of squeaky, but somebody's already moved some of the stuff, and we'll go back to normal. We're going to look at a couple of verses. John 8:31. We'll get our main thought in the verses. You turn there and let me grab my notebook. See if we can get some participation from the crowd tonight. Y'all like to participate? All right. You'll be so excited. Let's read that verse. It says, "Then said Jesus to those Jews which believed on him, If ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed." So it sounds like Jesus said, you'll be my disciples. You'll be my disciples if you continue in my word. We have his word. If we continue in it, then we'll be Jesus' disciples. There are different levels of disciples, and I was putting this together for last week, but the axe head beat it out. You remember the axe head that we talked about? And that, not that it was a competition, the Lord switches it, and so tonight, it fit for tonight. We're talking about building disciples. A disciple is someone that is being trained in something. Jesus' disciples are those that they're basically students of Christ. If you are saved, if you're a Christian, and they're the same thing, although people misuse them, then you should be a disciple. You should be Jesus' disciple. We learn things. We've talked about that many times. We don't know how to do everything, but we learn in different ways. We learn how to do things. And we're talking about building disciples, and before we get into that, I want to see if you can tell me, and I want lots of answers, okay? Tell me something. You can raise your hand. If everybody yells at once, I can't hear that many things at once. I got to write slow too, okay? So what's something, just one thing, think of one thing that you do, either you're doing it for Jesus or you're doing it for the church. It's really the same thing, right? What's something that you do? Tithe? He didn't raise his hand, did he? He raised his hand on the inside, but only one person said. What is it, Brother Buddy? Help others. You help others? Brother Murphy? Pray? Yeah. Sure need that. Brother Charlie? Yeah. All right. Somebody else. The Bible. Yes, that's the book for me. What else? Somebody else. We do a lot of other stuff. Y'all do stuff. Give to missions. which is separate than tithe, right? And our tithes are obligatory, but we're also required to give. We're supposed to be a cheerful giver. The tithe belongs to God. We're giving back to him what's his, and we give above and beyond that cheerfully. What else y'all do?
Discipline our children.
Oh, she said that with a smile. Huh? Just this wasn't planned, but discipline spelled a lot like disciple, isn't it? All right, what else? AJ? Go to church. Go to... All right, Miss Tracy.
Love the unlovable.
Ooh. I didn't hear what somebody said, so I'm afraid to ask. Miss Page? Teach, yep. Teach, okay. Beth. All right. Somebody else? AJ's got another one. Invite. I heard, all right. Respect. Miss Melba?
Use your talent that you have.
Talents. Let's get specific. What talents do y'all use? Somebody tell me a talent. What talent you use?
Play the organ.
That's organ, sing. Did you raise your hand? I'm just kidding. That's what somebody is a bad influence.
I don't know if it's talent, but we have a lot of encouragement.
Okay. It is if it's God given. Encourager. All right. Oh yeah, right there. Cook. I put a G, and if I reread that, it's going to say gook, and we won't know what I'm talking about. Let's be specific on that one. I'm going to go ahead and write it. Sliders. Okay. Miss Page.
We collectively sometimes all help clean and take care of our church.
Clean.
Go on some trips.
Which is it's a lot. It encourages missionaries. It helps the people that you see. Lots of things. They get to see somebody new, somebody, a believer. What else?
Give out tracts in our Bible.
Okay. Tract and Bible give. All right. Somebody scratched their nose. Be faithful, dependable. Dependable. Not everybody is that these days. Couple more. Miss Bonnie. Oh, I'm sorry.
Committed.
Committed. Who else?
Forgive those that sin.
Oh, forgiving. Okay. What? Witness. Any more? I mean, we could probably could keep going all night, but
Surrender.
surrender. That's a hard one, isn't it? If you don't think it's hard, try it. All right? That it? Brother Richard.
I got a question. I thought you said, what do you do, not what are you supposed to do?
Well, now which one of these people are you calling to the... Oh. You raised your hand, so I'm going to write... Here's what I'm going to write down. Mow. Mow. All right. There's a lot more, and we could keep going, but that's a list of things. Now, what on this list? Tithing, helping others, cooking, cleaning, missions, faithfulness, forgiveness, surrendering, mowing, talents, respect, inviting others, and the others. We'll go over these. Which one of these is not important? All important? Jesus said, if you continue in my words, then you're my disciple. He says it other ways. He repeats himself a lot. We can go back to the Old Testament, and he said the same thing to Moses and to Joshua. It would be the same words. Continue would be stay. Abide. John chapter 15, he says abide, and it's the same as continue. Abide in my love. Stay in my commandments. Stay in the things that I taught you. You're my disciples. Paul says this, and it's in 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse number 14. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them. Paul was telling Timothy, continue in the things that you have been taught. Continue in the things that you have learned, and be assured of who it was that taught it to you. So we've talked about how people talk before, their accents, and we repeat. I mean, if you have an accent, then you picked it up from somebody that was close to you. Y'all say different words around here than they say up north, and in the middle of the country, different words, different ways of saying things, different expressions, different ways to walk. And we could go on. Foods that we like. How did you get exposed to those things? And work ethic, and on and on and on. But break it down to the church, and somebody taught you, somebody showed you, somebody helped you, somebody brought you along. And if we are disciples, Jesus told his disciples, I got to go away. I've got to leave. Now he could stayed here on earth, and there would still be people that rejected, just like they did back then, but he left because that was his mission. His mission was completed. He had taught them 3 years with them. Boy, they weren't ready, were they? They weren't ready for him to leave. And it wasn't until he was gone that Peter, who didn't really know what to do, how are we supposed to act, he denied Christ, he hid, he cried for 3 days. And then Jesus said, Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. And then they went to the temple one Sunday, and Peter stood up and preached, and all the people said, well, where'd these guys get this? Where is this coming from? We perceive them as ignorant and unlearned men. How did they get all of this? And then from Peter, there were other disciples, not just the 12. Joseph of Arimathea, he was a disciple of Jesus. There was the other Nicodemus, he was a disciple of Christ. Then there was Ananias, who was in the temple on the day that Paul was blinded on the road to Damascus, and Paul went to him. And Paul, it was, I think, 3 days, Paul went to him and he helped him. And then he had to spend several years, Paul had to spend several years with the apostles, the disciples, and they had to teach him in the manner in which he already knew the Bible. He already knew what the book said, but they had to disciple him. And some are ready sooner than others, but Paul was discipled, and then Paul discipled others, and then they discipled, and then they discipled, and those discipled until us here today. But you go around churches in this community, you go to churches, and the crowd is a lot of times older, and that's it. Is older people, and the church is dying, if not close to being dead. There are churches that the doors are just almost shut, and they're begging and they're trying to get people to come in. And I'm not blaming them, and I don't know their stories, but if we don't disciple others, if we don't bring people along continually, continue in these things, there's not an abrupt stop. There's always generation gaps in churches. There's a big difference in them. And if we don't disciple them in these things that we do, then our church will be in the same condition and in the same manner. So we took this list of things that we do, and there are other things that we could add to that. And let's say there's no one here, I don't believe, tonight. There's no one here that's in their 90s. But there are those who are here in their 80s. And how long will those in their 80s be able to continue what they're doing now? How much longer? 10 years? So in 10 years, where will we be without the 80-year-olds? And if you take away the 70-year-olds and the 80-year-olds in a few years, if they were not able to come, or they were not here, what would be missing? How many things on this list would fall? What would be the things that somebody else would either have to pick up or would not get done? So what do you do? If you tithe, then we should be discipling others, not just one person. You don't just find one person, but you find a way to include others and disciple them in tithing. We have to disciple others in helping other people. We should be discipling in praying, and it can start young. We have to disciple others with our daily walk, with our Bible reading, discipling people with Bible reading, disciple people on giving to missions, giving to buildings. It shouldn't just be the older crowd are the ones that are giving to everything and doing everything. Go to church. We can disciple others in going to church by encouraging, and that takes something else off the list, by inviting, and by our faithfulness. If you're not faithful, you can't really disciple somebody in doing what you're telling them or trying to teach them to do. Christ taught by the things that he said and by the things that he did, the way that he lived. We need to teach. What if the teachers that we have in whatever age they are, what if they couldn't come? Who's going to fill in? Who's going to take their place? Would we be able to continue in that? How about talking about prayer? What about prayer time that we have? And we come men's prayer room, or we got Sunday school. If we don't go to those, will we continue in several years, or will it just be we don't have enough for that? How about the choir? If we took a certain group of people out of the choir, would the choir continue? We usually have a good crowd in the choir. That's good. But you remove that, who's going to do that? If we take away the cleaning, someone mentioned cleaning, the cleanup, whenever we have something, who is it that cleans up? How about the dishes? How about getting the food out? Oh, cooking is on the list. Sliders. Now, are you going to disciple somebody to make those sliders, or is that a family secret? You already have? I've heard about the sliders, and no one can make the sliders like Miss Sarah. Well, going to have to show them somehow. Somebody's got to continue in the sliders, or we won't have them. But think about this in the cooking, in the eating. If you took away 70 and 80-year-olds, took away the food that people that are 70 and 80 made, how much food do you think we would have on a Sunday? Huh? Uh-oh? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Uh-oh. Because I'm not, look, it's not a bad thing that y'all bring it, but who's coming up? What are we going to do? It's somebody, if they don't bring food, and it's, say, we're a few years away, and they're not bringing food, if it continues the way that it's going, then we're just going to have to either order or something, right? What are we going to do? Will there be enough food? Or are we, as the younger ones, are we coming up and learning from them? And you should be learning from them. How about the trash cans? Which is something else I just thought of. The trash cans go out. I know that Miss Bonnie, Brother Bobby usually pull those out. They remember to pull them out. Is that your job? Is that y'all's job, really? I don't think it is. But you do it. But if they're not here, most of the time we forget. And then I think probably she'll grab them on Monday morning or something like that. I mean, any old kid can roll a trash cart, right? Right? We can walk that far. I know it's hot out, but they do it. So who's coming along? And is that important or not? Do we need to get rid of the trash that we got? We sure like eating. We sure like putting away the groceries, and that when we do that, we always got lots of trash. Who's going to roll them carts out? Mission trips, giving out tracts. Are we teaching? You teach somebody how to do that. You help others how to do that. To be faithful. Yeah, we have to train people to be faithful and dependable. Lots of people in here are not managers, but leaders. You're leaders at your place of employment. Most of you are leaders at your job. And you do have to teach people today to be dependable. You got to show up to work. You got to come to work. You got to be faithful to work. And we need to train them to be faithful to church. It's important. Going to church is important. Witnessing. How do we train others to be a witness? How do we train others, disciple others to surrender? They have to see us willing to surrender. And surrendering is so hard because that means we have to change. We have to be willing to change. And you know what we hate? You know what you hate? Change. You don't like change. We want things to be better, but we don't want to change. God, I want things to be better, but I don't want to do anything different. Mowing, that's on the list. If somebody doesn't mow, who's going to mow? With all of these respect, that's a good one. Are we discipling others in respect, how they ought to respond to adults. And sometimes it's hard, but I just kept a little boy, my nephew, for a week. It's a lot of work, I know. 4 years old, constantly going. I enjoyed it, but I could tell you from him, and you've had kids, and I had a kid and been around kids, they're sponges and they're absorbing things like parrots. They repeat all of the things that we do and say. So you have to be careful about the things that you say. And a lot of times as teachers, or we're discipling people whether we mean to or not. And so the things that we say, they're soaking that up. So if I'm negative, if I gripe, then and every time I talked when he was around, be playing or whatever else, and Victoria was like, you think he's listening? I said, oh yeah, he's listening. They hear every word. And whenever you get quiet, the quieter you get, the better they're hearing. The louder you get, the less they can hear, right? You can be yelling them commands and they can't hear that, but if you start whispering something you don't want them to hear, you could spell ice cream at a whisper and they're like, ice cream? People hear all the things that we say, and we're teaching them. And we're teaching them about disrespect. They're picking that up real easy. And we're teaching them about the things that we don't like and the things that somebody did, and they come along and they got bad attitude, and they got no respect, and they see all of the problems at church. And there's going to be problems here, right? Because there's all of y'all are here. That's why. Sinners at church. It's full of sinners. Packed full of sinners. Me too. We're sinful. We're not perfect. So the church can't be perfect. And there's some things we need to discuss, but we can discuss it in the right way. What's the biblical way to fix things? There is a biblical way. Jesus gives us that way. Then you go to that person, and forgiveness. We got to disciple people to forgive other people, because you know what people are going to do? They're going to offend us. Talked about this morning people laughing at us, and they shouldn't. And people shouldn't offend us, and people shouldn't say things that offend us, but they're going to do it. And we're going to have to forgive, and we should forgive. Why? Because Jesus forgave us. He said, you forgive others as I have forgiven you. And ye are my disciples if you continue in my word. If you do the things that I taught you, if you do the things that I showed you, it's not just prayer and Bible reading. We need to be bringing people along that can replace us, because I'm not going to live forever. You're not going to live forever. We don't even know when our time will be that we leave. I've heard about, and there's special people that are here, and there are special people that I didn't get to meet. There are people that are special to this church that I didn't get to meet, but I feel like I know them because you've told me about them and the things that they did, the things that they love to do. Somebody's got to fill in for them. Somebody's got to keep these things going. It can't just be one person's vision and one person's job and one person's dream. So we teach older people. We're teaching the next generation. And what person can you not teach? Now you can teach. Hey, they're this tall. That's what I'm doing that for. Okay, can you pick that up for me? Thank you. Thanks for helping keep that clean. Oh, can you do this? Can you hold the door for somebody? Even little kids can do that. And if you're pleased with them, then they enjoy serving. But if you make it out to be where it's a job and it's something that they can begrudge, then they will. But if you teach them that they can enjoy it and it's good to help other people, then they'll do that too. Well, I'm not old. I'm 20. Well, you know what you can do? You can teach younger ones. Because I guarantee you, my whole life, whenever I was in we called it the primary class, when I was in the primary Sunday school class, I couldn't wait to be like the junior kids. I looked up to those junior kids because they were the big kids. They were in 3rd through 5th grade. And when I got to be in the 3rd through 5th grade, I looked up to the junior high kids because those were the kids I wanted to be like. And when I got to junior high, I found out that was all a sham. Junior high kids, it's awkward. That's the worst time of your life right there. You don't like that. But then you're looking up to the high school kids. I can't wait to be like the high school kids. So if you're in high school, guess what? All the other kids, they're looking up to you. And if you do good things, guess what they want to do? If you do bad things, guess what they want to do? They're like, hey, I want to be like him. Hey, I want to be like her. I see what she's doing. I'm going to be like that. I want to do those things. When you get out of high school, you're in the 20s, whatever. High school kids, you know what they want to be? They want to be the 20-year-old. Well, when does it stop? We look up to people our whole life. We're always looking up to somebody. And at some point, maybe we start going backwards. Man, I want to be like now that I'm in my 40s, I want to be like the 30-year-olds. Look how they got that going. I want to be like the 20. I don't want to go back to 20. I just don't want to keep, I don't want things to hurt. You know what I mean? I don't mind gaining wisdom and things. I just don't want to hurt. But we need to teach people constantly, all ages. Keep them involved, keep them engaged. If we don't, who's going to play the organ? Who's going to keep singing? Who's going to be the encourager? There are encouragers here. They got to learn from somebody. They got to be that. I've learned from people that were always, I was like, man, I wish I could be like that. Whenever you come up, they just make you feel so good and you didn't even do anything. I like those kind of people, and here I am years ago, maybe even still now, people come up to me and whenever they walk away, they're like, that was awkward. What a conversation. I want to be encouraging to people. Teach them to do all of these things. They're important. Loving the unlovable, didn't mention that. Somebody's got to be trained to do that. Somebody's got to be showed, hey, I'm not just telling you to do it. Watch how I do it. It's what Jesus did. That's what Paul did. And Paul said, you continue in the things that you have learned, but remember who it was. Remember who taught you. I don't know what he called himself to Timothy. Hey, Timothy, old Uncle Paul, you remember when I showed you those things? You keep going in that. You keep doing those things that I showed you. Remember why I showed you those things, and you keep doing those things. Continue in those things. We ought to be building disciples. And we are building disciples, whether we want to or not. Choose to build good disciples so that this church continues. Probably a different message, but I'm going to throw it in for emphasis. You know, when King David died and Solomon took over the kingdom, and Solomon reigned, and Solomon gave his heart to other women. He loved many women, and then God said, I'm not going to let this continue. And when Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became the king. And when Rehoboam was the king, God said, you can't continue going the way that you're going. I'll divide the kingdom. And Rehoboam asked the old men for counsel and the young men for counsel. And the old men said, your father was a hard man. Your father took a lot of money. He asked the young men, and the young men said, don't let up on him now. You drive him even harder than your father did. You know how much gap there was between the old and the young right there? Know what I see? No discipleship. no working together, not even close. Because they said, you do this, and they said, you do that. And here's what I think. I think they were both wrong because they weren't together. They should have been teaching together. And Rehoboam was wrong for separating them out. Let's get counsel from the old, and we'll play them against each other. And then he went with the counsel, and I think no matter which one he went with, it would have split their kingdom. Churches can split too if we don't disciple and teach. Why do we do what we do? Why do we have what we have? How did we get what it is? Work together, disciple, train the next group to come along and fill in. Because if you're not here, who's going to do what you do? Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for your word. Help us to disciple others. And sometimes it's easier as grown-ups and adults to just do for kids, just to do for employees. But Lord, we ought to be training and teaching others how to work, and even more so for the church and for your kingdom. Help us to disciple others to the ways that we know, even the Bible that we believe in, and the book that we read, and how we ought to pray, how we ought to live our lives, how we ought to be faithful. Things that we didn't even get to tonight, Lord, but I pray that you would help us to be great encouragers. Just help us to lead others and be faithful in the way that we lead them. Use us in Jesus' name.